Holy crap, is this a flail? I love flails. I will never, ever, ow! What the hell was that? Ah! Who did that? Ah!
I do not want to be touched. Leave me alone.
But the flail, I love you.
Ladies, gentlemen, and tarnished of all ages,
I absolutely love flails. As far as real-life weaponry goes, they are just the thing that grabs me the most. It's hard to put my finger on exactly why they speak to me in the way that they do, but I think I just get a ton of satisfaction from watching a weapon so heavily based upon physics. The concept of swinging a handle a tiny little bit, transferring that momentum to a chain, and then to the spiky ball at the end, watching the movements from one end to the other, it just makes my brain really happy, alright? So naturally, when I started playing Elden Ring and heard that there were flails in the game, I was ecstatic. I planned my entire journey around just wanting a good flail and going for it. And then I got one, and my entire world shattered around me. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but my love of flails was nearly immediately disappointed, because unfortunately, when you compare them to pretty much any other class of weapon in Elden Ring, they just sort of are not good, like, at all. Don't get me wrong, you can play the game with flails, you can beat the game with flails, but doing so will give you just a much harder time from the get-go. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why, and if there is even any way for this to be fixed in patches or DLC in the future. The first issue that flails have in Elden Ring is one of the most obvious and one of the most problematic: their range. It is particularly short, and range is sort of the king in a lot of situations in Elden Ring, especially in PvP, but even still in PvE.
Size doesn't matter.
I know, they don't even have the shortest range, and you're right, size doesn't matter inherently. It's about how you use it, and that is unfortunately where we move to the second issue here, the moveset. If you have short range but thrusting motions, forward moving attacks may be offset as well by super quick attacks or higher damage like daggers or fist weapons have, then it at least makes up for it a little bit, right? Well, this is where it becomes apparent that flails being physically longer than fists, claws, and daggers by default doesn't necessarily equate to them being more effective range in combat, because the moveset of flails is very defensive, for lack of a better term. Here's a full light attack combo with a dagger, and here is a full light attack combo with a flail. You travel less distance and take a longer period of time to reach that less distant point. When it comes to the heavy attack, well, this depends on if you're going glass half full or glass half empty as your type of person that you are, because you could easily argue that the flail doesn't have a heavy attack combo, but you could just as accurately say that the flail has an infinite heavy attack combo. Why? Well, there's only one heavy attack for the flail. There is low recovery time in between, but that means that you just have one move over and over, no changing of angles, nothing like that, and the move itself is, well, not great, to put it simply. It roots you on the spot, spinning behind you, then doing an overhead slam about a foot of distance in front of you. The roll attack is a short-range overhead slam. Honestly, the only move in the whole moveset that is actually decent and gets decent range is the backstep attack, launching you a really good distance forward with a forward-reaching swing as well, but you simply cannot build around only a backstep attack. You cannot put yourself in a situation where your only good attack has to be preceded by a tiny backwards hop. It just doesn't work long term. Thankfully though, Elden Ring is a game that isn't about movesets exclusively. It isn't just about the way that you swing a weapon, because we also have a whole host of crazy magical powers that can be applied to each and every weapon. And flails! Oh, we absolutely get a whole one unique weapon skill for flails: Spinning Chain. It's basically just wild strikes that axes got, but the wind-up period, instead of being a big, wide-reaching side-to-side swiping attack combo, is just spinning the chain in front of you at an incredibly short range in a very tiny circle. Starting to see the issue here? As if that wasn't enough, Spinning Chain was an Ash of War that you could find in the game upon release, allowing you to at least change the affinity of flails with it. But after 1.03, for whatever reason, they just removed it, and now you can't find it. And so if you actually want to use Spinning Chain, it will have to be on standard scaling, because I guess flails just had it too good for too long before that.
Sarcasm. Yes.
Aside from this, flails can use any Ash of War that can go on a hammer, which does open it up to some of the better general use Ashes of War, but unfortunately it means that it just doesn't have much of its own identity when it comes to weapon skills, which means any weapon skill that is worth using on a flail can be used not on a flail. And as I have described the other issues with flails so far, well, it just means that flails are genuinely worse than any other weapon built the exact same way for the same purpose. A great example of this is Lion's Claw, which can be applied to flails, Flails, strangely, and is generally one of the best weapon skills in the game for a melee weapon. However, it is one of the best weapon skills in the game when applied to something specifically like a colossal weapon or colossal sword. The damage with those is incredible using that skill, and the size of the weapons means that you can hit it from like a mile away. The Flails, however, well, this is Lion's Claw with a flail right now. It's just not great. The one thing I thought might be the saving grace of Flails here, the ability to use just generally super strong Ash of War, and it turns out that it is just way weaker on a flail than pretty much anything else that it can be applied to. Go figure. As if all of this still wasn't enough, you can hit yourself with the flail, because why would you not be able to, I guess? I mean, it is hilarious, don't get me wrong, it is funny as hell, but it would be way funnier if the rest of the weapon around it was, like, stronger, you know? Compensating a strong weapon with a funny self-damage? That's great. Putting self-damage on something that's already weak, well, you may be surprised that it's even a thing, and I should say that it's a very specific interaction that's causing it. It isn't any time that you charge the heavy attack with a flail, it is specifically any time that you charge a heavy attack with a flail while wearing the deathbed dress, as this piece of clothing just works in mysterious ways, and one of those ways is causing you to hit yourself with flails. Not only that, but one of the only real redeeming factors of flails is that the horse riding heavy attack is just really constant, where you swing the weapon a load of times before the full swing, with each time dealing extra damage. So if you park up right next to something and swing it, it will do a great amount of hits per button press compared to most other horse riding weapons. And yes, this is incredibly specific, but we have to take our victories where they come, okay? And if you are wearing the deathbed dress while doing this, of course, you will actually just slap your horse in the face for 1 to 5 damage per swing. I don't know if I should laugh or cry. I love flails, and this is silly as all hell, but it almost feels like the devs are just bullying flails after a little bit here. Like, the one thing after another, flails are just being beaten into the floor. I get it, if we were talking about realism to the real world, flails aren't the most practical, they aren't great, but they are freaking cool. And this is a video game, and I wanted my damn flail to at least be somewhat close to the functionality of the other weapon types, and it just makes me sad that it isn't. I'm not even talking about the basic little flail or the Chainlink Flail, which is also quite basic. Even the more unique flails here, of which there are 3, are just pretty disappointing. The Nightrider Flail was the one that excited me the most upon finding. After all, it's just a flail times 3. It applies bleed, which is a great status in Elden Ring, and, well, it doesn't have great scaling at all, and the bleed it applies is just less than most of the bleed weapons in the game, as well as not having access to seppuku because you can't really stab yourself with a flail. Though I guess they could have done some sort of like self-flagellation type of version of seppuku, but it's not there now, so it doesn't really work as a bleed build. The Bastard Stars Flail has some cool effects, but in a game that also has the Wing of Astil sword that uses the same type of effect in a more usable way, and just on a weapon that performs better in general, it's really hard to say that you should use the Bastard Stars over the Wing of Astil for any reason other than you want to. There are some niche situations where the specific aiming of it can do a lot of good, but for the most part it is just harder to use than Wing of Astil to achieve similar results, and that is just on the skill itself because the weapon as a whole is unfortunately just not as good consider the rest of it. Then finally we have the Family Heads Flail. This one is super cool, and again, just not very strong. At max rank, it has B dexterity scaling, D strength, and D int scaling, which just makes it not strong in that sense at all. The weapon skill is interesting, but not particularly powerful either. And so you wind up with another super cool conceptual flail that's just not very good in practice. That then covers all of the flails, why they are weak as a weapon class, and why even these specifically unique flails aren't great either. So let's talk about how this weapon may be able to be fixed in the future. Because right now, that is our only hope for this entire weapon type. Quite simply, we need some better flails. We need one with a somewhat unique moveset that actually changes the motions a little bit, something a little bit more interesting for your combat ability. We need more Ashes of War options, preferably ones that are made for flails rather than just ones that are made for other weapons that flails just piggyback off of in less effective ways. And honestly, I do really stand by the concept that flails should get a seppuku equivalent Ash of War where you flail yourself in the back for a similar effect, something that makes a flail bleed build actually work ideally. The thing is, I can totally see DLC in the future fixing a lot of the problems that flails have, if they want it to do so. But as of this point in the game, FromSoft has shown me that they do not care for flails all that much. Again, even removing the ability to customize the one flail specific Ash of War that's in the game. So my expectations are quite low. Right now, flails are bad. I really desperately want that to change. I want to be proven wrong, but I just have no reason to believe that this will change anytime soon, other than my own hopes and dreams. That just about does it, everyone. The sad tale of flails in Elden Ring. Why they struggle, why there are no real standout flails that make up for it, and what I think might be able to be done to change this in the future. Do you like flails as much as I do? Were you just as disappointed upon diving into them deeper? Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.